Hello, and welcome to Word with the CEO. My name is Brendon Kleen, the Digital Communications Specialist here at the Global Sport Institute, joined as always by Global Sport Institute CEO Ken Shropshire to introduce our women's college basketball field study and our accompanying digital issue here at Global Sport Matters, Taking Charge in Women's Basketball. And Ken, this issue, of course, centered on the latest installment of this field studies series, and we have quite a bit of data from college sports overall now throughout this field studies series. What did you come away from this particular women's college basketball study thinking about in that context?
Yeah, it's really something else. This is a topic that we arguably should have looked at earlier, and we've been thinking about it the whole time. And I take people back to the beginning of Title IX, back in the early 1970s, when these issues were first coming to light. And there was a great article that was written, a law review article, and I forget the whole title, but the hook to the article title was "Function at the Junction." And what the author was trying to say is that as we look at the impact of Title IX and the elevation of women's sports, let's see who's being successful, not just on the court, but in terms of who's getting the jobs, in terms of all over the place, but for our purposes, the head coach jobs. And early on, think about it, this whole new source of jobs opened up as Title IX funding went in place. And the big winners were white men who kind of shifted over from wherever they were to these new full-time jobs, coaching women, white women, and at the bottom were Black women. So a lot of what the study does, here we are, 40 years later, looks at where are we now from that beginning of time. And the study starts off about 1984, we kind of figured was really when the impact of Title IX was being felt.
So this is the first women's sports league, or whatever we want to call this, that we've looked at in the field studies series. We've looked at the NFL, MLB, these men's leagues. So what's different when you think about the infrastructure and sort of the history of women's basketball versus the other sports, when we're kind of talking about how people should be thinking about this data?
Yeah, it is fascinating. I mean, it's as I was saying, it's the idea of, when we look at the men's sports data, leagues, enterprises, rarely are we thinking about, unfortunately, women coaching there. We are looking at the race issues, we are looking at age, we're looking at other demographic factors. So that comes into play here, as I said, but also coming into play more so than the other studies we've looked at are HBCUs, and what's the role of coaching there and opportunities for women there to move forward or not, and who gets those jobs. So that's some of the insight that readers will get as they look at that as well.
So looking forward a little bit, as we like to do in these videos, the women's game is obviously hoping to kind of, capitalize and move forward off of some positive momentum for not only the business, but, some excitement about the talent in the sport. And of course, at the same time, this external investigation into the gender inequities in the NCAA has taken up a lot of the headline and spotlight for the sport. So we're looking at sort of who is in charge in this game, but at the same time, we're making our way toward another season. So what do you make of the landscape of the sport, and how are you thinking about the sort of overall big picture landscape of women's college basketball heading into another November?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see with this fantastic year that the WNBA has had. Is there some elevation? Is there some drafting that occurs from women's basketball based on the success of the WNBA? And how does that spill over, frankly, into leadership positions as well? Now, this is something we won't see right away, but I think it is a factor that we need to start considering, that there's such a close tie between college football and professional football, for example, or the NBA and NCAAW basketball. But the connection let's see if it goes backwards some in terms of this dramatic elevation of the WNBA. What happens with women's basketball at the college level?
Should be an exciting year for the sport, and leading into another WNBA season next summer to take in the full scope and really get a deeper look at all of these layers that we're talking about here. Check out Taking Charge in Women's College Basketball at globalsportmatters.com. Subscribe below to our YouTube page to keep up all month long there, and follow the Global Sport Matters podcast on your favorite audio app, and we'll be with you throughout the month.